So I want to start with a very strong statement, which is within the next 10 years, discourse is going to fundamentally change because of artificial intelligence. I'm going to spend 15 minutes trying to back up this statement, and if I'm going to do my job properly, at the end of the 15 minutes, you're going to have more questions than answers. But as activists and as people that want to influence political discourse, there are a lot of opportunities and what can be done, and I think it's important to recognize them. Some context on artificial intelligence. So some of you may know that in 1997, there was a seminal challenge that happened, that there was the first computer to defeat a world champion in chess. That was Kasparov at the time by IBM's Deep Blue. In 2011, there was the first computer to defeat the best human in Jeopardy. In 2015, the first computer to beat the best person in Go. And then there was a question, what should come next? And in 2019, we've seen a live demonstration of the first computer to successfully debate a human being. It was Mr. Harish Natarajan. Some of you may actually know him here. He's the person with the most academic wins in the history of academic debating. The way that it happened, and to give you the intuition that this was actually a full live debate, was the machine got a topic to discuss only 15 minutes before the debate itself started, that we should subsidize preschools. Based on these only 4 words, it uttered a 4-minute speech. The human got a chance to give a 4-minute speech. Then the machine needed to give a 4-minute response, and so did the human, and then a 2-minute summary for each side. That is to say something which is important. There are many technical details to it, but just bear in mind that the machine actually never saw the motion, was never trained on the motion that it got. To give you an intuition of how this played out, I'm actually going to show you a part of the debate.
Greetings, Harish. I have heard you hold the world record in debate competition wins against humans, but I suspect you've never debated a machine. Welcome to the future. When we subsidize preschools and the like, we are making good use of government money because they carry benefits for society as a whole. For decades, research has demonstrated that high-quality preschool is one of the best investments of public dollars, resulting in children who fare better on tests and have more successful lives than those without the same access. Secondly, a few words about poverty. While I cannot experience poverty directly and have no complaints concerning my own standards of living, I still have the following to share. Regarding poverty, research clearly shows that a good preschool can help kids overcome the disadvantages often associated with poverty. The OECD has recommended that government subsidize pre-primary education to boost performance in poor areas.
Well, thank you very much, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here for this historic event. And it certainly was a pleasure to listen to Project Debater. There was a lot of information in that speech, and lots of facts and lots of figures. The problem, though, is the reality of subsidizing preschools is one which does not deal with the underlying problems in society. If you massively increase the number of people going to preschool, they are all going to be the ones going to the high-quality preschools. In a competitive environment at the age of 3 or 4, when you're learning that that other child is potentially better than you, when you realize you aren't necessarily as talented as someone else, that huge psychological damage for many children may mean that preschool is actively harmful.
Among other things, I think Mr. Natarajan suggested that preschools should not be subsidized because this will reduce their quality. I would like to offer a different view. I disagree with my opponent. Subsidizing preschools will have no negative effect on their quality. If anything, the opposite is true. One of many reasons is that subsidizing attracts more skilled and qualified people to the field, improving the quality of preschools for all. My opponent claimed that preschools are harmful. I believe my argument suggested that the benefits outweigh the potential disadvantages. I touched upon 3 issues: children, students, and crime. Specifically, I noted that preschool education improves children's development. In addition, I suggested that attending preschool helps students succeed. And a final point to consider is that preschool can prevent future crime. We should subsidize preschools. Thanks for your attention.
You probably have many different questions at this point of how does it work? What are the applications, especially for political discourse? Is it dangerous? Who won the debate? So how does it work? So that's the short answer to how this thing works. I'm not obviously going to go into all of the technical details. It is important to note that it has a huge corpus of 400 different million articles. This is roughly 10 billion sentences and statements. It needs to automatically know how to understand which one is relevant per different topics. From what is relevant, it needs to understand redundancy, use it in order to build speeches via understanding the quality, and then doing something which is comprehensible for human beings. Because obviously, even if you are able to identify many different statements which are relevant to a debate, it is unclear that you're going to be able to give a speech in a way that humans understand. There are three unique capabilities here. One of them is data-driven speech building. That is the part that I've just described. Another one is listening and comprehension, because it needs to also be able to listen to the human and respond, and as we've seen in the video. And there is a third part, which was about modeling human dilemmas, the common ones, and how they interact with humanity. There are many applications to these kinds of machines. You can imagine applications in open domain research, being financial advisors, a doctor help, but I am going to focus on politics for this one. Let's talk about what can be potential influences for elected officials. So, as I assume you all know these terms, issues of fact-checking, fake news, filter bubbles, echo chambers, and how these kinds of innovations are actually going to back the claim that I've made in the beginning, that discourse is going to utterly change in the next couple of years via artificial intelligence. So to put things in context, this machine is a demonstration, but it's not the only development that is happening in the field. There are also ideas of argument search or tools to help us decision-making or writing support. To give an example of how the other tools look like, one of them is that instead of the current search that you're used to when you're opening Google, you're going to have a search that is done by just looking for arguments automatically, as in that you won't have to read all of the different articles in order to get and understand and build a case. But if you're going to look at ban alcohol, you're just going to give pro and con arguments. Or improving search in order to see both sides of a topic automatically. If you're going to look for hot yoga in this demonstration, you're going to get both arguments for and against hot yoga. And again, without any effort, you're just going to get them. Or alternatively, things that are fundamentally going to change writing. This is a demonstration for a product that is being worked on now, that all you need to do is to write the first sentence, and the paragraph is going to be completely filled up for you based on the idea that you've placed in. You already know, for some of you have noticed that maybe in your email, when you're writing a sentence, you get a suggestion for an autocomplete for the rest of the sentence. We are going to see more improvements in writing as a whole, that we're just going to place the core idea of a paragraph and we're going to get a suggestion on how it's going to be completed. Obviously, this has a lot of applications to how we're going to engage with each other in language generally as an outcome in politics as well. But a very interesting one can be something that we call the argument crowdsourcing. What we actually mean by argument crowdsourcing is that instead of, as you've seen in the previous demonstration, that a machine can take a large corpus of 400 million articles and find what is relevant to a specific motion, is that we're going to ask people to insert their ideas, and based on these ideas to generate the speeches. Imagine a situation that, for example, we're going to debate AI in this room, and instead of asking the machine to go over the internet, I'm going to ask everyone here to contribute arguments, and based on that to get speeches which are going to be compiled. You may think about a very clear application for that, for discourse and politics, which is, if I'm able to do that, usually it's going to be very hard for me to go into my constituents as a politician and collect all of their data and all of their ideas on a particular topic. If I have a machine that can ask people and solicit people to contribute arguments and based on that to build full speeches, it can be a game changer in politics. And we've actually done a demonstration of it a couple of months ago at Cambridge University. That's the most ancient debate hall in the world. That what we've done is just opening an infrastructure, asking people worldwide to contribute arguments on artificial intelligence, and we've let the machine compile arguments compile the speeches based on these arguments. So again, not to just say it, but to give a very, I'm not going to be able to show you the whole demonstration in the interest of time, but to give you some intuition on what happened there. Remember, all of the content was given by over 1,000 people worldwide, and the machine did all of the work to putting it into one speech.
Without further ado, I'd like to start the debate off with Project Debater. So Project Debater is designed by IBM Research. It will deliver a speech based on 1,100 arguments collected from union members and others over the past week. It will not be taking points of information. Project Debater, please take the floor.
The following speech is based on 570 arguments contributed by people around the globe, supporting the idea that AI will bring more harm than good. There are 5 issues that will be elaborated on now. The first will demonstrate how AI may take problematic decisions. The next issue is bias. In addition, we will hear about employment, societies, and control. About decision-making. AI will not be able to make a decision that is the morally correct one, because morality is unique to humans. It cannot make moral decisions easily and can lead to disasters. AI can cause a lot of harm. It uses judgments in making decisions. It can only make decisions it has been programmed for, and it is not possible to program for all scenarios. Only humans can. Intelligence is a danger because it carries many risks, such as accidents, misuse, and arms races. Artificial intelligence systems sometimes work badly. Self-driving cars cannot make morality-based decisions because of the lack of knowledge AI has. Next, a few words about bias. The datasets that train AI contain biased data, thus the systems amplify it. AI will take human bias and will fixate it for generations. This is a massive harm to progressives. Due to both skewed data and built-in bias, AI could potentially act in a discriminatory or biased way. It perpetuates bias and stereotype due to the data used for training. AI will unravel bias, manipulation, competition, and all evil. AI companies still have too little expertise on how to properly assess datasets and filter out bias. The yardstick AI should be compared to a status quo.
I'm going to cut it short in the interest of time, but I think you get the idea. And in this demonstration, it was shown on Cambridge for an AI. However, we've also done another demonstration in which we've done in the city of Lugano in Switzerland, that the city debated whether it should allow autonomous cars, yes or no, which was a very hot topic in the context. And instead of doing the traditional way of trying to very unsuccessfully, trying to get the opinion of everyone, in which the tools that politicians currently have is only just to ask and do a poll, which is usually binary, are you for or against, people contributed arguments, and the machine used their arguments in order to compile speeches that were played in the town hall in a meeting in which they decided whether they actually want to have autonomous cars in the town, yes or no. And this allows for a new avenue of political discourse, because actually now there is a proper, easy ability for the entire town to hear what other people are thinking and for the elected politicians to be able to act on it. Is it dangerous though? What are the risks that these things poses? So I'm just going to show you, this is one of the memes that was shown after the demonstration between Harish and the machine. You can see it in the metrics context of showing the dangers, but the issue is that the nuance level that are necessary, that machines currently have, is very far away for humans. So the model that we should think about is probably cooperation, rather than these machines are going to overtake us and be too dangerous, to have too much danger in the political sphere. Just to give you some demonstrations on how hard it is for them to do stuff that we as humans see as basic. So let's say there's an example that the topic is blood donations should be mandatory. So let's say that what you're going to see is this evidence that according to studies, blood donors are 88% less likely to suffer from a heart attack. This seems to be very relevant. But this is, which is very similar to the first one, that statistics show that students are the main blood donors contributing about 80% of blood, is not very persuasive, even though they are very close originally. Another demonstration of this is like a very important motion that we should ban Valentine's Day. Let's say that someone is saying that a Canadian survey, the survey in Canada showed that 60% of people agree that Valentine's Day is a waste of time and money. That's obviously something which is relevant. However, another one which is very close, in the US, a survey shows that people who are going to break up with their significant other are going to do it just before Valentine's Day, which is close, but not necessarily something that is going to be that persuasive in that debate. And the machine finds it incredibly hard to differentiate between the two. There is another example which I'm not going to go into, again, for the interest of time. But however, what needs to be taken into consideration is that these machines don't have the level of nuance currently in order to be persuasive on their own. So therefore, the discussion that we need to have, because they have too many mistakes and lack of context and the biases that they have, they do promote problems. However, they are offering us abilities to increase and enhance the current levels of discussions that are in society at the moment. And as an outcome, there is a model which allows us and our elected politicians to use them in order to facilitate a more and a proper, better discussion. So I'm going to stop here in the interest of time.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll go with the questions now. Question? Can we go up there and then with you? Sure.
Hi, Dan. I would firstly... Up here. I can see you. It's fine. Firstly, I would like to thank you for giving this amazing presentation, and I have 2 questions to ask. I think a computing engineer and as a person who studied computer science, you know about the Turing test. For anybody who doesn't know, a Turing test, the guy who broke the enigma proposed in a scientific research, should AI be able to think by itself? Do you, as a person who's probably worked on this, think we will achieve this in this near century, or do we need more time? And how will we see this similar AI be applied in everyday continuities? Thank you.
Sure. So regarding the Turing test, so my prediction is yes, we are going to be able to reach a point in which machines are going to talk at the level of a Turing test, of being non-distinguishable from other humans in many cases. However, and I think that's the important caveat here, I'm not sure if it matters that much, because the yardstick of the Turing test at the time that it was composed, in my mind, was, you know, if machines are able to be indistinguishable to humans, as in you're unable to understand which one is giving which speech, then definitely they have reached a level of intelligence that shows us that we have gotten into a milestone that is so significant, and it means something on the level of intelligence of the machine itself. I think what we've learned in the last couple of decades, that's not necessarily the case. So even if they are going to be giving speeches so well that we are going to think that a fellow human gave them, it's not actually, in my opinion, something that shows high-level intelligence, but rather shows that we have developed them enough so that they can give good enough speeches. In terms of the continuity and how they're going to be integrated, so, you know, unfortunately, this, I think, is a long discussion because it's very hard to give predictions. In my mind, the thing that is going to be clearly a basic human activity, which is going to be disrupted completely in the next 10 years, is writing. Very much, I think, as I pointed to before, and I alluded to giving the talk itself, we are not used to the fact that we can just write the idea and the paragraph completely is going to be derived from it. But I think that we are getting into the point in which autocomplete is going to be so strong to the extent that we are not going to need to do writing as we think of it right now, but just rather have a much more conceptual notion of what we're trying to articulate, and machines are going to be much more helpful into that direction. I obviously have much more to say about it, but I think we'll have to continue. Yeah.
Thanks.
My question is about essentiality, about the American culture, for example. They say, you know, they're not dressed elegant enough, and their building and architecture not so well designed like the European. But, for example, this transatlantic culture, is trying to develop the design as much as humankind can be developed, while in Europe, we develop the facade, but we are not essential. You know, we have just looks. So in this context, I would like to ask you, your country, Israel, its president is very closely associated with the Turkish one, with the Hungarian, with the Polish, and with the Russian. And now I know that some charges against corruption again about him and his wife were. And
I'll need the question.
Just let me. Okay, 2 more sentences, please. So, so if you are not with him, you cannot achieve anything in your country. That's what I heard. Do you think that your project is on a philosophical level essential, or it's maybe more of a facade? Thank you.
I'm not sure, to be honest, I'm not entirely sure what it means. I'm also not entirely sure that we associated ourselves with Turkey, Russia, etc. Obviously there are connections, but I don't think that I'm the right person to give my opinion on a geopolitical question here. I hope that the project is essential. I'm not entirely sure what you mean as a facade in that regard, so it's a little hard for me to be able to answer that. If you want, we can take this chat later, just find me outside. It's not used by the country's government as a whole. So I don't think that's the case.
Yeah, I think I think the answer was okay.
Okay.
We are satisfied. Do we have time for one more question? This is okay?
Hi. So since the program gathers information from different articles and I guess arguments that are made on social media as well, is there any specific ratio that can be seen with regards to conservative and liberal approaches? Does the machine from what it gathers make some specific ratio that goes to one side or the other?
So for the purposes of demonstration, we've used just a collection of different articles. So, it is completely up to us on how to decide the ratio. I don't think that we've ever tried to do a study to see whether it has a tendency to select from one source over the other. The issue was more of a technical one, because while some publications are very clearly and inherently one-sided, some at the very least don't affiliate themselves with one. And when you're talking about world media, there is a level there of even understanding which one is which. I do think that's very interesting. In terms of particular applications, though, I think that the aspiration was try to be as balanced as possible, but I think that a very interesting innovation would be to add exactly what you were saying, to see if it has a tendency to select one over the other. Okay. I would say that if you all have more questions, then I also have my details here, so feel free to email me and just approach.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much.